The warning klaxons had been screaming for 3 hours when Admiral Zethkar finally authorized the emergency protocol. The Void Hunters had breached the outer defensive perimeter of Station Nexus 7, and their biomechanical monstrosities were systematically dismantling every ship the Galactic Coalition could throw at them. "How many more vessels do we have?" Zethkar's forearms trembled as he gripped the command console, his chitinous exoskeleton clicking with nervous energy. 17 cruisers, Admiral," replied Commander Velthara, her tentacles writhing with barely contained panic. "But at this rate, we'll be overrun within the hour." The Admiral's compound eyes darted to the sealed door at the far end of the command center. Behind that door lay their last resort, something the previous generation of military leaders had sworn should never be awakened, except in the most dire circumstances. The humans had been gone for nearly 2 centuries, their homeworld consumed by their own sun's death throes. Only a handful of their kind remained scattered across the galaxy in deep cryosleep. "Initiate Protocol Omega-7, Zethkar commanded, his voice barely a whisper. The bridge fell silent except for the distant explosions echoing through the station's hull. "Sir," Velthara's voice cracked, "are you certain? The historical records state that—" "I know what the records state." The Admiral's voice boomed across the bridge. "But if we don't act now, there won't be anyone left to remember why we kept them asleep." Dr. Sarah Chen's first sensation upon awakening was the taste of copper and ozone. Her neural implants came online gradually, flooding her consciousness with system diagnostics and temporal data. 237 years, 4 months, and 16 days. She'd been asleep for over 2 centuries. The cryopod hissed open, and she found herself surrounded by a collection of alien faces she didn't recognize. Their expressions ranged from desperate hope to barely concealed terror. "Human Chen," the largest of them spoke, his voice translated through her implants. "I am Admiral Zethkar of the Galactic Coalition. We need your help." Sarah sat up slowly, her enhanced musculature adapting to consciousness with practiced efficiency. Even after centuries of sleep, her body felt strong, her mind sharp. The genetic modifications and cybernetic enhancements that had made her one of humanity's elite Guardian class remained perfectly functional. "The Void Hunters," she said, not asking but stating. Her enhanced senses were already picking up the electromagnetic signatures of the attacking vessels, analyzing their energy patterns and tactical formations. "I can smell their biotech from here. You know of them?" Zethkar's mandibles clicked in surprise. "We fought them before." Sarah's eyes began to glow with a faint blue light as her combat systems initialized. "They're the reason humanity developed the Guardian program. We knew someday they'd return." She stood, and suddenly the aliens around her took an involuntary step backward. Even at average human height, Sarah's presence seemed to fill the room. Her movements were too fluid, too precise. The air around her seemed to hum with barely contained energy. "How long until they breach the station?" she asked. 23 minutes, Velthara replied, her voice barely above a whisper. Sarah nodded and walked to the viewport. Outside, she could see the massive, writhing forms of the Void Hunter ships, living vessels that pulsed with malevolent intelligence. Her tactical implants immediately began calculating firing solutions, energy output requirements, and probability matrices. "I need a ship," she said. "Human Chen," Admiral Zethkar stepped forward cautiously. "Perhaps you should coordinate with our fleet commanders. We have established protocols. Your protocols won't work." Sarah turned to face him, and for a moment her human facade slipped. The Admiral saw something in her eyes that made his blood run cold. Not cruelty, but a kind of terrifying competence that spoke of battles fought on a scale he couldn't imagine. "The Void Hunters don't think like you do. They're not just predators. They're an extinction event given form. Your ships are trying to fight them like they're just another hostile species." She moved to the command console and placed her hand on the interface. Immediately, the station systems responded to her presence, granting her access levels that shouldn't have existed. "The humans who created me knew that someday, someone would have to make the hard choices," Sarah continued, her voice carrying an edge that made every alien in the room tense. "They built us to be humanity's final answer to existential threats." On the main display, the tactical situation updated in real time as Sarah's enhanced processing power analyzed the battle. The Coalition forces were being systematically destroyed, their weapons barely scratching the biomechanical hulls of the Void Hunter vessels. "There!" She pointed to a small fast attack craft in the hangar bay. That'll do. But it's just a reconnaissance vessel, Zethkar protested. No heavy weapons, minimal shielding. I don't need heavy weapons. Sarah's smile was cold and predatory. I am the weapon. As she walked toward the hangar bay, Admiral Zethkar found himself wondering if awakening the human had been a terrible mistake. The power readings from her biomechanical systems were off the charts, and there was something in her demeanor that suggested the Coalition might have simply traded one existential threat for another. In the hangar, Sarah paused at the entrance to the small craft. She turned back to address the growing crowd of officers and crew members who had gathered to watch. When humanity went extinct, we made sure something of us would survive, she said. We encoded our rage, our refusal to surrender, our absolute commitment to protecting life in the galaxy into people like me. The Void Hunters killed my species, consumed my homeworld, and thought they had won. Her eyes blazed brighter, and the metal around her began to resonate with harmonic frequencies that made the aliens' teeth ache. They're about to learn that humanity's greatest weapon was never our technology or our ships. Sarah stepped into the craft, and her voice carried back to them with the weight of prophecy. It was our absolute refusal to let evil win, no matter the cost. As the small ship launched into the battle-torn void, those watching from the station began to understand why their predecessors had been so afraid to wake the humans. Sarah Chen wasn't just their salvation. She was something far more dangerous. Humanity's final gift to a galaxy that had forgotten what it meant to fight without compromise.